Now, Guruji, moving on to the topic for today, Ram Vidya versus Ravan Vidya. So, my first question is, how do the principles of Ram Vidya, that is Sanatan Shastar Vidiya, the ancient martial arts of India, differ from those of Ravan Vidya, or I would say the modern fitness regime?
No, it's not. So here, Mutare, it's nothing about modern fitness. So in Kshatriyas, we have a particular body mechanics. Dhanpir we call it. So when we move according to moving with gravity. Now, gravity in ancient India is Gurtavaya Karshana Shakti. Now, whereas in the West, I mean, the understanding of gravity fully got unraveled by Sir Isaac Newton. And in India, they're also having understandings of gravity for a long time. Like, even the ancient Greeks, everybody understands you throw something up, there's got to be some kind of power that brings it down. Like, so even the Greeks were thinking like this. The Indians also thought like this. But the Indians, we have Rishi Kanad, who belongs to one of the Khat Darshans, the 6 schools of philosophy. It's the Visheshka school he belonged to. And in that Visheshka Shatra, he speaks of Gurtava Akarshana Shakti. And so there's an understanding of gravity. And then the way, so our Rishi Munis like the famous Mandukya, etc., the one who wrote the Upanishad, Mandukya, Upanishad, and so on. So there's a legend, a very much called within the Akhara, that one time Rishi Mandukya was sitting besides a pond. And of course, like all Rishi, was meditating, reflecting. And a frog came landing upon his leg. And and then we said nothing special there, but at that point when the frog jumped off, he realized there was no pushing off. The frog's legs did not push off. And I mean, we've got a beautiful image here, which you can share with you later on. You can see on there of a frog jumping off. One of the guys in England, a photographer, by chance took this picture, and it shows a frog jumping off someone's hand, and the body's gone, the legs are left behind. You see the picture, then you will, when the picture is seen, you will see what he means like that. So what we have now here is, with this, is that an understanding developed in Rishi Mandukya's mindset that there's something at work here, which is not pushing off the ground and so on. So over the centuries, the Rishi Munis figured out ways how to move utilizing gravity. Like, now this is technical stuff. So unless you come to the Akhara and see what's happening, or go to the app and I'll show you what this is, a lot of people are not going to really understand. The most basic way it can make you understand is to move without pushing your feet is how children do it. So when you see a small baby and he starts to learn to move, he doesn't push off the ground. What he does is the baby leans forward until his body mass goes beyond his center of gravity, then his feet are naturally uprooted. So beginning from that understanding, the Rishi Munis, who always observed nature, super smart, they figured out ways to move without using physical, direct muscle use and so on. Now, they learned how to, this is the paradox, they learned how to, through their meditation and so on. So meditation is central to this art. So through meditation, we learn to focus, concentrate, and settle the mind to gain full clarity. And once you have that understanding, once you have the mind settled, calmed, and full clarity, we can then clearly think. In an agitated mind, you cannot think. And these Rishi Munis were deep thinkers. They're thinking about Brahm, like. They're talking about the whole universe, what it entails, what it means, and so on. Eventually, they came to a conclusion in the Advaita school of Satchitanand. So what we have is Rishis, super thinkers, and they learn to move with gravity, and they started learning to relax. As they relax, they release muscular tension, skeletal, structural tension, and they learn how to compress. So the internal structures in the body, because the Rishis came to a profound understanding that the human body is mostly water. That's why in ancient texts it talks about ghat, ghat mein harju base, that in the water pot. So the water pot, the body is likened to a water pot. And sometimes in Guru Granth Sahib, it is likened also to a samundar, an ocean, and so on. And it is a scientific fact that the human body is mainly 65% water. And as a consequence, with this understanding that the body is water, then the Rishi Munis began to think about how to move, utilizing this understanding. And they came up with understanding of like buoyant force and so on. How to, if you relax, you create a particular compression, and that compression gives you buoyant force. We in Punjabi we call it Chardi Kala. And that allows you to basically move effortlessly. But at the same time, this is the paradox now, it creates your body becomes light because of the buoyant force, but because you release the mass, it becomes heavy. So it becomes heavy and light at the same time, which does not really compute with human beings. But when you feel the art where it is, so the art is highly sophisticated, and you got to realize Indian civilization, in terms of cultural advancement, I mean, there's a lot of civilization, but Indian civilization was highly advanced in the past. And so we're not saying this just because we're Indians, like, but there definitely is. The Indians love categorizing everything, and the Indians basically observe, because they're understanding the universe is infinite. To understand the infinite, they're going to study everything, and that's what the Rishi Munis were doing, like. And it was a very open debate going on every thought and so on. So you had schools which were Astic, you had Gnostic schools. Some of the same schools were Astic and Gnostic within. And then the Kardashians were constantly debating with each other, this. Students will learn from one school and then go and study with the other one to see what their weaknesses are and so on and so on. So this debating, this exploring the universe, the infinite, to understand Brahm, that's what at the end they came to understand Niti, because the more they tried to explore, the more they understood, the more there was. So with Kshatriyas, he evolved in that kind of what's called a milieu of intellectual pursuit and so on. And as a consequence, the Guru Mantra of Kshatriyas is Kal. So Kal, of course, is death, is time, space, time. But Kal is also another name for Shiv. Shiv is Akarshan. Akarshan is Akarshan Shakti. Akarshan Shakti is Gurtavaya Akarshan Shakti. So it's gravity, like. So everything, every single movement, every single action is with gravity. And as a consequence, this does not only make us very martially, very efficient in movement, that between starting a movement and ending it, the transition, we're trying to get rid of. So from a spiritual perspective, we say Shiv is stillness, and his Shakti, the Adi Shakti, is movement. So between stillness and movement, there's a transition. From the point where you are still, then you move, there's a transition. And we try to transcend that by moving in such a way that you cannot see the transition. That we are basically adish, meaning we are non-telegraphic, it can be catched by. So the philosophy of Kshatriyas itself is Vedantic. So the notion of Vedant, that everything from the Shun emerges. So you have Adark and you have Akark. So jab Adark kara katara parja sabte para jab Akarta kartho kambu tumhe mil detar samu. That's Guru Gobind Singh saying, when the universe expands, when the void, when expands, then everything comes to being, and then it contracts. So this constant expansion and contraction of the universe is happening. And taking that understanding, the ancient sages, the ancient Rishi Munis, they then adapted that to the physical body. Like, so the average human being now breathes in and he breathes out. But in Kshatriyas, I'm not breathing in and out. I'm doing that while I'm constantly expanding, and I'm then contracting through relaxations and so on. And so with that kind of understanding, everything changes. The way you generate power and force and so on. So when we look at, so what we say Ram, when we say Ram, there's a saying they have Ram japo, Aram karo. Okay? So Ram na betna, Ram na karma karna, Ram na everything. Ram means relaxation, like. So whereas normally you will just lift the arm like this, in this understanding, we will do Aram first. We'll relax. We'll relax all our structures, relax everything we are, and then we will lift and so on. If I can get Yogditya to come over here, just to show you. So if I put my hand like this, I'm just sitting there doing nothing, like. And Yogditya, who is obviously a big strong guy, he would put his hand on there to stop me from lifting it like this. So there, I can't lift it with muscle. That's going to be difficult, like. And even here, so that's pure muscle using. And when you use muscles like this, they are segmented and so on. But if I were to now connect and relax and expand, and then I lift it, then the power comes like. So it's difficult to understand. I mean, Yogi is here now, he's a bodybuilder type. And so he lifts weights. Well, he lifted for a living, like, he still does. And the distinction between a normal lift and relaxing, expanding the lifting, Yogi, how would you explain it?
The difference is enormous. When you are lifting using the muscle, mostly the muscle's weight is going to work. If you understand it scientifically, only the particular muscle's mass is going to work in that case. But in Gurdev's case, he is using his entire mass, which is almost 95 kg, 96 kg. So I couldn't stop it because that 95 kg were working in tandem with gravity. So that was the basic difference, and this gives him phenomenal power.
For pound, this method of relaxing and expanding completely is much more powerful than using his muscles in isolation by itself. Even logically, think about it. If your whole body is working as one, as opposed to groups of muscles working individually, it's obviously going to be a lot stronger and so on. So the key thing in the Vidya with Ram is, we say the concept of Ram, sometimes we say, and then we say Ravan Vidya, or we say Mekkasur Vidya as well, because we also, like Ram, we have Chandi as well. So the idea is this idea of relaxing and then focusing in the mind and then relaxing. So we say Surti Lagoni, and then letting working with gravity. Now, opposed to this, like if I say I'm up like this, I'm all what you call akadya like this. So akarna, like this kind of movement here, you see that is associated with Ravan and Mekkasur and so on, all the negative rakish spirits out. The word rakish literally means your rakkarn, they who burn, who destroy. Rak is ash, rakkan, they who destroy, the destructive. Whereas Ram is he who nurtures. So it's the opposite of that. So Ravan is also Ram. So in Guru Nanak actually says in Gurbani, he actually says in Sikh scriptures, Ram Chand Maro Eh Ravan. Ke Ram Chandra ji destroyed the Hankar, the ego form Ravan. So the ego inside you is Ravan. And what destroys it is Ram. And when ego, in Punjabi we also say like akadya, akarna. So when you're stiff and all this. Now when you stiffen up like this, what you're doing is you're isolating the muscles. And so on. Individual muscles start to go working individually. So if you look at bodybuilders, modern day bodybuilding, they develop individual muscle groups. So they may train one day bicep, next day tricep, next try this. And thus each individual gets defined. And they look at the definitions of the muscles and their proportions and their symmetry. And accordingly they judge them to be a good bodybuilder or a bad bodybuilder and so on. But the body becomes segmented. And also the body becomes, nowadays in the West, they associate like big bulging, hard muscles as being epitome of strength and so on. So the least fat there is, so nowadays there's a craze for six packs for a good while, like, and which basically means you just decrease your body fat to such a level that your six pack show. Everybody can do that if they decrease their body fat that much. But it is not healthy, like, to go that thin and so on. So whereas if you look at the physique that the Indians had understanding of, if you go to ancient mandirs and you look at the images, the murti of say Krishna Maharaj or Sri Ramchandra ji and so on, or Shiv and so on, it's a different type of physique. And this physique is understood, and this physique that the murti and the mandirs are very precise because they're based on Shastras. In the Shastras, they give you exact measurements. This is that long, this is that long. You can't just make a cartoon or make any kind of image and so on. And they're iconic representatives, so they're very precise. And the way they stand with their feet underneath the body, that is known as stanu. So when you stand in such a way that your body is perfectly in line with gravity, so all your mass is stacked up with gravity, and thus they can work with gravity. I mean, the opposite is this: when you stoop, when you go down and you stoop, like bent over, you're going to feel the pain in the back, etc., so on. So having a good posture, then developing the right kind of physique. So the physique that we had for ancient Kshatriyas, and if you look at all the avatars, Sri Ramchandra ji, Sri Krishna Maharaj, they're all Kshatriyas. So the Kshatriya physique is spoken of as Sadol Lachkadar. The word Sudo literally means firm, muscular, symmetrical. And the word Lachkdar means soft, resilient, tensile strength. It's not just flexible, it means soft, resilient tensile strength. So the idea what you call a firm, so firm but not hard. Okay, so in the Western sense, when they build muscles, they will basically tear the fibers, the muscle fibers. So next day, that's why you feel so sore. So they tear the muscle fibers slightly, and then they rest, and then they build up and so on. And by tearing it, they build the muscles up. The problem, the issue with that is like someone cuts your skin, and then it heals. There's a scar, but the scar will be stiff, and so on. So the stiffness comes in. Our ancestors, with Sanjam Kriya, they understood that rather than tearing the muscles, they take it. Like if see these are say fibers, instead of breaking them, they take them to the point of breaking, but they don't break them. So the muscles do get worked, but the fibers they're not broken because we don't want that internal scarring going on, and thus stiffness. So in this way, the physique stays firm. But same, it gets stronger, it gets stronger as well, and he has that to go. So that's the firmness, that's the sudol, the firm, muscular, and symmetry they want, because each side of the body they want symmetry. Symmetry is associated with health. If we look at a fruit which is symmetrical, that's going to be more attractive to us than a fruit which is bent, because symmetry in nature is linked with health. If you're not symmetrical, there's no health. Even human beings, we're attracted to symmetry. And so on. That's like even a blotch of ink on a piece of paper folded and puts it up there, because it's symmetrical, it'll look nice to us. If it's not symmetrical, it doesn't look nice to us. So symmetry is crucial to indicate health. So we want a body that's firm, muscular, symmetrical. And the lach we're talking about is not stretching, but expanding, and so on. So if I stretch my arm, I can only go that far. But if I now relax my structures, so my ligaments, my tendons, they release their tension, my muscles, my arm now goes, look how far that goes. And it will increase in power as well, because the Indian Rishi Munis, so this is where you got to understand, this is how smart they were. They understood that even body parts like the arm, if you cut the arm off here, the arm will be 5.7% of your body mass. And they understood this. So when you hit someone, you will strike, like in my case, I am 98 kg in weight. And as a consequence, my arm is roughly about, I think it's 5.58 kg. So if I was to hit you with 8.8 kg, and then when they hit, it's not just the hitting of the mass, they're hitting with kinetic energy. And the kinetic energy is of the rate of an object flowing through gravity. That's 9.81 meters per square second. So in 1 second, you'll go 9.81 seconds. That's like a car going from 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. So when you put mass and then you put kinetic energy together, you get force. So the ancient Rishi Munis understood that. So when they hit you, they'll hit you with what they call lamehat, parehat. So if you have descriptions of Sri Ramchandra, they call him Ajin Bahu. With the arms are longer. So here, like my arms are here now. If I were to relax my structures, they'll go up. And you can relax different structures, and then your arms will get to near the knee, and so on. So that gets you Ajin Bahu. And once you have Ajin Bahu, then you can maneuver from the shoulders and so on. And once you can maneuver from the shoulders, you can connect with the whole body, then your whole body work and so on. So Kshatriyas will introduce you to a way to move with gravity. So yes, there are phenomenal martial arts which called benefits that we can move as one from the shoulders, shoulder weights, and this understanding of move from the shoulders is verified by text. There's a 1846 text written by Kavi Santokh, which is Sikh text, which talks about Payan Sagande Shigata Sat, that moving feet with speed with shoulders. Payan Sagande or shoulder blade. So moving the feet with the shoulders with speed. Now, that's 1846. You say that's not really ancient. Then you go back in time and you go to the Agni Puran. So even the most conservative dating of this Puran by modern day academics, they reckon that it was written between 9th and 11th century. But they do concede that it might have been written between 9th and 11th century, but it existed in some form much earlier. So even if we go by, say, 9th, 11th century, that's over 1,000 odd years ago. And in there, it talks about skandegat, locomotion with shoulder blades. Now, we use akarshan shakti, which is gravity and so on. He also mentions akarshan in there as well, the compression side there. You're going to realize Danu Veda, which is the Upved, and texts like the Agni Puran, they were written for warriors, for Kshatriyas, and they were written by people who already knew what they were doing. So as a consequence, they do not elaborate everything. They're more cryptic. So they may just say Akarshan Shakti, they may say Skande Gat. And the ones who know, they understand what it means, whereas the average person, they cannot. So ancient texts were written in apophisms.
They're like small formulas.
Formulas, which you need a guru to unravel,
Right.
because the traditional system of Indian study is Guru Shishya Parampara, and and this is a very advanced form of teaching as well, because anytime Dick and Harry can start reading books and start he may have no character, his intentions may be all wrong and so on. So to catch out the Chunjagyanis who take a bit of knowledge and set themselves up, and false teachers, the Indian masters had this understanding that you need a Guru Shish Parampara to keep the Vidya in terms of in its pristine form and so on. Because India is one of the only few places where ancient knowledge that was transmitted from thousands of years ago has somehow managed to survive till now. If you go back to any other culture in the world, that knowledge on the whole, written knowledge, culture, has vanished. Like the Greeks cannot relate to the ancient texts and so on, the Europeans and so on. But in India, we still go to Banaras. They are still chanting the Vedic chants in the same way. In South India, there's a fire ceremony of the Agni Devta, which they reckon is pre-human language, and that's still been cited there. Same with Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas is very precise because it's a Vedic knowledge. So anything Vedic knowledge, we know it's Vedic knowledge when it's very precise. So Kshatriyas is precise because it's governed by the simple principle that everything must move with Kala. And then if you look at the movements of Kshatriyas, you will start moving gravity,